Today I'm going to demonstrate the Moebius Cast On. The Moebius Cast On is a circular in the round cast on that was brought to a lot of our attention by Cat Bhordi. She published a series of books that really brought it to the forefront. It is a circular cast on that creates a half twist in the circle. It's great for headbands, glove cuffs, bags, anything where you want a decorative twist added to your pattern. To start, I'll make a slip knot, and I like to slide it onto my cable to about the halfway point. You'll need at least a 32-inch, preferably a 40-inch circular needle for this cast on, unless you've got really short interchangeable needles or short needles on your cable. You just need the longer length to be able to work the stitches. So you'll start with the slip knot and behind your working yarn to create your first stitch on your needle, and then you'll go under the cable and over the yarn and bring it back up to create your second stitch, and then you'll go behind your working yarn and then again under, over, and back up, behind, under, over, and back up, behind, under, over, and back up. And you just continue casting on stitches in this manner until you have the number of stitches required for your pattern. And when you're counting, you'll be counting the stitches along the outside edge. As you load more stitches on, they'll start holding the two sections of the cable and needles together. I'll come back in a few minutes and show you how it looks with more stitches on it. Okay, I have a number of stitches on it. I'm just sliding them around, and I'm slowly working further along on the circle of the cable as I load more stitches on. Sorry, I tend to go fairly fast with this. And I just keep continuing to add more and more stitches and spreading them out along the cable. And when I'm counting my stitches, I'll count just on the outside edge. You don't want to twist your cable and switch between which side you're counting. But I'll just count the outside edge stitches all the way around. And I'll just continue in this manner until I have all the stitches I need for my pattern. Okay, I have all the stitches on my needle necessary for my pattern. And so I'm just going to work between pushing the cable and sliding the stitches so that my needles are close enough together to start working the stitches. That looks about right. You can kind of pull and tug on that cable to adjust as necessary. And I'm going to add a stitch marker to mark the beginning of my round. And because I started with my slip knot on the cable, my slip knot is my first stitch to be worked. I don't like leaving slip knots in my work, so I'm going to remove it. And because I finished my last stitch going around my cable, I should still have the same number of stitches on the top and bottom of my work. And for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to knit all the stitches. Every other stitch on the first half of this cast on is going to be twisted and will need to be worked through the back loop. And your stitches will seem, depending on how many stitches you have, your stitches may seem super tight on your needles. And you just keep stretching them around. It will loosen up some after your first round. And you'll just continue working your stitches in pattern, making sure you work them either through the front loop or back loop as they present, all the way around till you have your stitch marker on your cable. I'm on the last few stitches of the first half of my first round. There's my stitch marker on the cable, and I'm just finishing up the last few stitches, and I am at the halfway point. And I'm going to continue working the stitches around in the manner they present, which should all be forward-facing stitches. You should only need to work in the front of each stitch around. The wonderful thing about the Moebius is this is my cast on right here, and I'm working on either side of the cast on, working out from the middle. And so my design is reversible, should be reversible, because you will see the front and the back of your work at the same time where the pattern twists. And so it's great for headbands, reversible designs, a rib stitch, a seed stitch, anything like that would look really nice. If you want a garter stitch, you cannot just knit all the rounds. You'll end up with a stockinette and reverse stockinette if you knit every round. So if you want a garter stitch, you're going to need to work one round, knit one round, and then purl the next round. If you're doing a seed stitch, I like casting on an extra stitch, so I have an odd number of stitches, and then you can just do knit one, purl one all the way around for all your rounds, and you don't have to even worry about the stitch marker, because with that odd stitch, when you come back to the beginning, you'll be one stitch off, and your purl stitch that you started with the previous row will now be a knit stitch. I just love the Moebius for its simplicity and easy working. It creates a really nice edge for a lot of things. You can because you're working on both sides of the cast on, your stitches double the first round. So say my pattern called for me to cast on 67 stitches. When I have knit all my stitches, I will have knit 134 stitches for my first round, because I will have worked 67 stitches twice. It's just a really nice pattern, and you can already see the front and the back side. So I have purl stitches on the inside and knit stitches on the outside. And that's because I'm seeing the back side of my first half of the row. Okay, I've completed my first round. Back to my stitch marker where it can be removed and passed from one needle to the other. And as you can see, I am back to my first stitch being a knit stitch. So if I wanted garter, I would need to start purling all the way around. You can also do a slip stitch design. You could do any number of designs from your pattern book, your stitch pattern books, just whatever suits your fancy or matches the pattern that you're working. And when you bind off your stitches, you'll just bind them off in the normal manner, and you'll have a nice half twist in your circle. And that's the Moebius.